lives, that will change history, 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 that will change history. That will be the most beautiful day.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in and stopping by for our weekly Intel report for the week of the 18th of January, 2023. Before we get started, I'd like to, again, thank everybody for tuning in this evening. Shout-outs all around to all my usuals that are tuning in the chat there. Itchy the Killer, thank you for stopping by. Joe Blowin' Wind, thank you so much for stopping by. Shout-out to Miss Tiger Eye, who's one of our newer mods here on the YouTube live chat. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I'll be talking to everybody that I tossed the moderator rank to after the live report this evening to touch base with you guys. The account, aka Kayuka, thank you so much for stopping by this evening. Speedy Squirrel, good to see you. Pocket Frog, good to see you as well. Epi Moo, as always, coming in with so many emojis that YouTube automatically censors that comment, but don't worry, I'll uncensor it so people can see your wonderful emoji artwork there. Thank you so much, Epi, for stopping by this evening. To everybody, again, thank you guys for taking some time out of your day to be here with us and get in the know of what's going on in the world today, to get updated on everything in Ukraine, China, all of the global security issues. We're covering everything now here on the stream, not just Ukraine. Of course, Ukraine is still our main focus and our top priority. And we will make sure that you guys are fully filled in on everything that's been going on for about the last week or so in Ukraine. Shout out to KJC for the super chat there. Thank you so much for stopping by tonight and for supporting us here. So again, we're going to get started tonight. First, I'll go through kind of my opening monologue here, and then we'll hop into the Ukraine news first, going through our primary updates for about the past week or so, with a heavy focus on what has happened over the past about 48 to 72 hours, because we have a lot of news to go over with Ukraine. And then we'll take a look at our community aggregated reporting from our Discord server over on the our Discord community in the Situation Room over there on our Discord server, where all of you have been working hard day in and day out to provide community aggregated reports on the ongoing war in Ukraine. And then we'll hop into our open source intelligence tools and take a look at kind of some of the specifics of what's going on the ground in Ukraine over the past, as I said, about the past week or so. And then we'll jump into some updates on China and the Taiwan situation. We'll take a look at what's going on in the South Pacific and if there's any new significant developments there. We'll be taking a look at some cyber news as well, some information on recent cyber threats, etc. And, of course, we'll wrap everything off with a Q&A, so stick around for that if you have questions on not only the channel, but if you want to ask about Ukraine, China, or any of the topics that we cover here, or any other topics for that matter, you can ask away in that Q&A at the end of the show, and we'll make sure to answer all of your guys' questions and read all of your comments. First, though, if you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe. It's the best way to support the channel is hitting that like button, hit that subscribe button, comment, share this stream. If you like this content, share it. Helps others find this reporting. If you haven't already, again, subscribe. It's the only way to join our YouTube live chat and to get access to that chat. And again, it helps support the channel a ton. Joe Blowin' Wind, thank you so much for the super chat there. I guess, so this was going to be at the end of my monologue, but I guess I'll bump it up here. We are running a fundraiser for the month of January and February, really until we complete it. In fact, I'll hop on over here to that here. So we're running a fundraiser for signmyrocket.com. It's a Ukrainian charity. Basically, for $1,000, we can have a message written on a Howitzer 155 Actually, never mind. Sorry, it's a 155 millimeter, not the M77 howitzer. We might do that in another fundraiser, but we're starting with the 155 millimeter artillery round here. We can have a message written on it. I plan to have a channel, a YouTube channel related message put on one of these artillery shells and sent over as a gift to the Russian occupiers, the Russian invaders. And in turn, that money goes towards their goal of $2 million, here you can see on screen, which will go directly to supporting Ukrainian forces on the ground. So it's a really good way to help out, and not only that, but we'll get that cool video showing a message from the channel here on one of those artillery shells. It'll be sent straight to the invading Russian forces. So we're currently at about $100 of tonight's $1,000 goal for that 155 millimeter artillery round, and we'll see how far we can make it. It might take us a couple streams before we get there, but I'm pretty confident we'll be able to make that happen. And again, it goes to a good cause. So for all of you tuning in on Twitch this evening, again, thank you so much for stopping by. If you guys haven't already, hit that follow button. It's the only way to get notified when I go live on Twitch. For those of you that don't know, we do dual stream to both YouTube and Twitch at the same time, at least for these live reports. And we dual stream one of our 24/7 Intel reports, but not both of them. Again, a reminder for those that don't know, but we are doing the 24/7 open source intelligence streams again. Some of them have cameras, some of them don't. We have one that is specifically for Ukraine, and we have one now that is specifically for Taiwan, as we keep an eye on that situation as it continues to heat up. I don't know how long I'll be doing both of those. I might switch it up, maybe cover another topic of interest. Say we have another global security situation unfold. We might look at maybe putting up an Intel stream for a different topic. Joe Blown Wind, thank you so much for the support for the fundraiser there. At the end of the show, we'll tally up every super chat for the fundraiser, and we will see how far we got with that. If you guys haven't already, join our Discord server community. It's the best way to join in the ongoing chat and exchange of information and reports. We have a wonderful community that we've built over there that is active all day, every day. Exchanging information on the ongoing crisis in Ukraine, not just Ukraine, but many different topics. We have a variety of channels over there where people exchange, again, reports, information, and just, to communicate. It's been an excellent resource for all of us. In fact, a segment on our show this evening, which we do every evening, our community aggregated reports, again, comes from the Situation Room channel over on the Discord server. It's a really good place to find up-to-date reporting on what is going on the ground in Ukraine. And we will be expanding that Situation Room in the coming months. We might make a separate one for the China-Taiwan situation, but I still haven't got around to reorganizing that, and I'm still trying to decide how I'm going to proceed in doing that. However, if you want an excellent source of information, up-to-date information on what's going on in Ukraine, and keep in mind, it's community aggregated information from a variety of sources, so it's you guys that are bringing that information to the table. Keep in mind, we do have moderators that do go through and make sure to filter out the spam and stuff that gets posted there, and we make sure to fact check a lot of the data that goes into that channel. But if you'd like, probably what I recommend as the most up-to-date and informative resource for Ukrainian information on the Ukrainian war, go and check out that Situation Room on the Discord. Tonight we're running a poll. I know I got a lot to go over here, but we got a poll here in the YouTube live chat. If you guys haven't already voted in that, make sure you go ahead and cast your vote in that live chat poll, because we'll be covering that at the end of the show during the Q&A. We'll take a look to see what you guys voted for over in that poll, what your answer was for that poll. Tonight's question is, do you think Russia will launch a renewed attack from Belarus with the Belarusian military forces into Ukraine? So make sure, go over there and cast your vote, because we will be covering that topic towards the end of the show, probably sometime during the Q&A. If I forget, you guys in the live chat, remind me, because I have forgotten that a couple times before. So, but I'll try not to this time. Again, before we get right into it, I'd like to thank everybody that supported so far. We're only a few minutes into the stream here, and seeing all you guys not only chatting in the live chat here, seeing all these return viewers, etc., and you guys supporting the channel, it's really great. And again, I thank you all for taking some time out of your day to be here and to get filled in on what is going on. Without further ado, we're going to hop right into tonight's news. Okay, we have a lot to go over. A lot has happened in Ukraine over the past week. We have a lot of main headlines to go over, as well as a whole slew of community reports that have been brought to us over the past few days here, and that doesn't even get us started into the open source intelligence data as well. Epimoo, thank you so much for the live chat, or sorry, the super chat there in the YouTube live chat. Thank you so much. All right, we're going to hop right over into, first we're going to take a look at our battle map here while I read off our main headlines. That's the wrong map here. Let's we'll get into the live UA map with the open source intelligence tools. This is our battle map here. Let me get that centered here on the screen properly. Okay, so again, this map here shows the current direction of Russian forces, of invading Russian forces here. This is our eastern front, so to speak, our front line. And each one of these icons here shows the locations or estimated locations of significant units of both Russian military and Wagner PMC forces, which those of you that don't know, there is a private military contractor, a private military corporation, so to speak, in Ukraine working for the Russians called the Wagner Group. I believe many of you are familiar with them. So again, we'll hop right into tonight's main headlines, which I'll read off very quickly here. Let's get back to that. Okay, so starting off, it is day 330. When I started writing these reports earlier, it was day 329. Technically, we're on day 330 now in Ukraine. Latest news so far over the past 24 hours is at least 14, now increased to 16 people, including Ukraine's Interior Minister Denis Monasterisky. Other senior officials and one child have been killed after their helicopter crashed into a kindergarten just outside of Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine. I believe that death count for that child, has increased to 3. However, I'm still waiting for a confirmed report on that. But as of writing this report earlier, it was 14 people, including that one child, which I believe was a student of the kindergarten, if I'm not mistaken, have lost their lives, unfortunately, in this crash of this helicopter. Now, again, significant here, Ukraine's interior minister, and I think a few of their cabinet members lost their lives in this crash. A number of children at the school in Bravary, a suburb of the capital, were among the injured. After that helicopter hit the building's roof, officials gave no immediate account of the cause of the crash. It's ongoing an investigation. They're looking into all possible causes, if it was a mechanical malfunction or if it was sabotage. Again, we'll know more with next week's report. Sometime in the coming hours and days, we'll probably get an update on that, and I'll try my best to get that out to you, or again, one of our other community reporters and intel analysts over in the Discord will most likely already have that information posted by the time I can get it out to you for next week's report. So again, best place to find that updated information is over in the Discord server. Monasterisky, who was responsible for the police and security inside Ukraine, is the most senior Ukrainian official to die since the war has begun. So that's why this is so significant here. The helicopter appears to have been traveling to a frontline area in foggy conditions when it came down in an area where there are a number of tall buildings. Video footage from the scene of the crash showed a large area around the school on fire in the immediate aftermath of the impact, and bodies lying in the street outside. If we hop over into our live UA map here, I could show you where this took place. Again, it's in that suburb of Bravary, right outside of Kyiv. So it's basically within the capital of Ukraine here. I mean, some would argue it's a suburb outside of Kyiv, but it's very close to the capital. You can see here on the map. So it says here we got an updated death count, about 16 17 hours ago. Internal Affairs Minister of Ukraine, Mona Starisky, his deputy Anin, among 16 dead in that helicopter crash in Bravary. 22 were wounded and 2 children dead. I believe that is now 3 children. I'm pretty sure died in that crash, and again, 10 wounded. So this is where that was located here in Ukraine. And we also have a few videos here to show you guys of some of the aftermath from that helicopter crash. Let's go and take a look. So again, that was some footage of the aftermath after that helicopter crashed in Bravary. We have another video here to show you a little bit of reporting from ABC from the ground there in Bravary of the aftermath of that crash. Really quickly, thank you so much to Sydney Pruden, one of our wonderful Discord members, for the super chat there. And I believe we had a few others come through. Tony Wilson, thank you so much, says, artillery money, buy something nice with it. We shall, Tony. I believe you could consider those 155 millimeters pretty nice, if you'd ask me. All right, let's take a look at this video here. Again, this is from a ABC News reporter on the ground in Ukraine after the crash occurred. Let's see what they have to say.
Now, Ukraine says it's investigating the cause of that helicopter crash. What we do know is that it took out the top leadership of the interior.
Sorry, just to correct, this is actually, he's in Dnipro. Again, another story which I'm about to cover here in a few minutes, so stay tuned. He's actually at the scene of the attack on an apartment building there in Dnipro. I'll cover that in a few minutes here, but let's hear what they have to say about the helicopter crash.
Ukraine says it's investigating the cause of that helicopter crash. What we do know is that it took out the top leadership of the Interior Ministry of this country. It also killed 3 children in that kindergarten where it crashed in that.
So again, they're confirming there. So far, total amounts for children that have lost their lives is at 3. Again, we're going to have to wait a little bit longer here to get concrete numbers on all of the injured and dead at that crash site.
That Kyiv suburb. This morning, that devastating helicopter crash outside of Kyiv, a Ukrainian emergency services helicopter slamming into a residential building, which included a kindergarten. In verified video circulating online, you can see jet fuel still burning in the courtyard, and hear the cries for help. The area littered with wreckage, including this rotor impaling a mangled car. Ukraine's interior minister, his deputy, and state secretary on board, along with 5 others. None survived. They had been flying to what officials called a war hotspot when the helicopter reportedly lost its bearings and slammed into the building. Officials saying 16 people killed, including 3 children in that kindergarten. That as the death toll continues to rise in the Russian missile strike in the city of Dnipro. Now at 45 dead, At least a dozen remain unaccounted for. And in the coldest part of winter, the mayor of Kyiv warning that Russia's near daily onslaught of missile attacks has the country's electrical grid hanging by a thread.
We don't talk about the collapse, but can happen any second, because any second Russian rockets can destroy our critical infrastructure.
We got rare access to a power station in central Ukraine, a frequent target for Russian missile attacks.
All right, so again, we'll talk a little bit more about those other topics here in a minute, but just wanted to show you guys kind of what they're saying about that helicopter crash that occurred earlier. I believe that was about 17 hours ago now, if I'm not mistaken. So, okay, moving on here, we're going to get back to our battle map here, so I can show you guys a couple things. Get that back up on screen for myself. All right, so one thing to keep in mind here, and I'm kind of bringing this up because they were talking about the attacks on the Ukrainian power grid. Mainly they were mentioning Kyiv here, but what a lot of people don't understand is that, I mean, Kyiv still has power for the most part. I know they are dealing with issues with their power grid in Kyiv. Quite often, they even have full power outages. But for a large portion of this area here on this map, they have zero power. In a large portion of eastern Ukraine, there is no power at all. And not just power, we're talking heating, we're talking water, cell service even in a lot of these places. And I think that's important to keep in mind, is that, Kyiv and the western parts of Ukraine, for the most part, are still in pretty good shape when it comes to power and utilities. Eastern Ukraine right now is absolutely devastated. And you're talking about the middle of an Eastern European winter here. And given it is a pretty warm Eastern European winter, which is a good thing for the Ukrainians, because not only are they, with these warmer temperatures, they're not worrying as much about heating their homes. In some places, even though people are still freezing to death in their homes. I don't want to say that they aren't or anything, but what's good about it is this has been an extremely warm winter for Ukraine, and arguably for the rest of Europe as well. I read a piece earlier today about how lucky Europe has been. Russia basically has used, its energy as a weapon. Okay, so things like natural gas and oil, etc. They were basically banking on this being a very cold European winter, which would, as more people use natural gas, as more people use that oil that's coming from Russia, certain commercial sectors would then get hit with the increase in prices, and so it's kind of a what would you say here? Kind of a double-edged sword, so to speak. On one side of things, the Ukrainians, have kind of lucked out a little bit, with it being a warmer winter. On the other hand, Ukraine, for the most part, the majority of eastern Ukraine is still without power, still without resources. And as they said there in that report, for the most part, the Ukrainian power grid is holding on by a thread. And I think that's even a little bit of an understatement. The Russians have been just consecutively, nonstop bombarding the Ukrainian power grid day after day with strikes constantly and consistently. And if that keeps up, eventually their power grid will completely fail systematically across the country. If that does happen, the civilian death toll and the hardships that civilians in the country have to endure will increase dramatically. So I think that's an important point to kind of drive home there. Another major headline this evening: Volodymyr Zelensky has described that crash that occurred in Brovary as a, quote, terrible tragedy and a, quote, black mourning, as he called it. Writing on his Telegram, Ukraine's president said, quote, "The exact number of victims of the tragedy is currently being established. Among them are Minister of Internal Affairs, and his first deputy, which his name, I believe, was Yenin. Again, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that 100% correct there, so bear with me. State Secretary of the Ministry of Internal Affairs, Yuri Lubikovic, and their assistants and the helicopter crew all perished in that crash. 25 people were injured. That came from his telegram, including 10 children. And they did confirm as of this minute 3 children had died. He said, "The pain is unspeakable. I've instructed the Security Service of Ukraine in cooperation with the National Police of Ukraine and other authoritized bodies to find out all the circumstances of, quote, what happened." Russia announced Tuesday it will make, quote, major changes to its armed forces from 2023 to 2026, promising to shake up its military structure after months of setbacks on the battlefield in Ukraine. In addition to administrative changes, the Defense Ministry said it would strengthen the combat capabilities of its naval, airspace, and strategic missile forces. The Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said that changes had been made necessary by the, quote, proxy war being conducted in Ukraine by the West. In further news here, Ukraine's national police chief, Ihor Kilimenko, has been appointed acting interior ministry following that helicopter crash. That came from Prime Minister Denis Shamal, I'm pretty sure is how you pronounce that. The UK's Foreign Secretary James Cleverly paid tribute to Monasterisky. Of course, again, that's the Minister of Internal Affairs of Ukraine, describing him as, quote, a true friend of the UK, saying, quote, "We are ready to support Ukraine in whatever way we can." The U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, Bridget A. Brink, has said that she is, quote, shocked and saddened by the news. The EU's ambassador to Ukraine, Matai Masiakas, said the crash victims were, quote, excellent cooperation partners and friends. Lithuanian Foreign Minister Gabrielius Landsbergis said in Brussels that he expects Germany will sign off on sending tanks to Ukraine at a key meeting of the Ukraine Defense Contract Group at the Ramstein Air Base in Germany on Friday. Pope Francis on Wednesday condemned the Russian missile strike on an apartment building, again, that it killed 45 people in Dnipro over the weekend, including young children, as heartbreaking. I'll have some more details and even some footage on that strike in Dnipro later in this show when we get into the community aggregated reporting. A search and rescue operation in the rubble of Saturday's Russian missile strike on that apartment building in Dnipro has been officially completed, said authorities in that area. The death toll is currently stands at about 45, including a child. The head of the Dnipro Petrovsk Regional Military Administration said in a report at least 19 people are still missing and a further 79 people injured, according to local officials. So an absolute tragedy that has occurred there in Dnipro. Many people, unfortunately, lost their lives and were injured in that strike. More than 9,000 civilians, including 453 children, have been killed in Ukraine since Russia's invasion last February, according to Ukraine. Again, I've talked about this in last week's report. That number is most definitely going to grow in the coming weeks and months, and we probably won't know an official death toll, civilian death toll at least, until well after this war has come to an end. The head of the Ukrainian presidential staff said at the World Economic Forum in the Swiss resort of Davos, quote, "We will not forgive a single act of torture or life taken. Each criminal will be held accountable," adding that Ukraine wanted a special international tribunal to try Russian politicians and leaders and get reparations for the destruction caused by Russia's invasion. The UN has confirmed a lower number of civilian deaths, saying that 7,000 have been killed over the course of the war so far. But the true toll is likely considerably higher. The Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights said on Monday it had confirmed 7,031 civilian deaths. Again, as I said, those numbers are definitely going to increase in the coming months. And again, we probably won't know an official total until well after the war has ended. Ukraine's top general, Valery Zaluzhnyi, again, it's kind of a mouthful there to pronounce that one, so bear with me, spoke to his U.S. counterpart, General Mark Milley, face-to-face near the Ukraine-Poland border for the first time on Tuesday. This is a pretty significant meeting here between these two top generals here, between the U.S. and Ukraine. Miley, who he's the chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff for the United States, met for a couple of hours at an undisclosed location in southeastern Poland on Tuesday. The pair have talked frequently about Ukraine's military needs and the state of the war over the past year, but have never met face to face. This is pretty significant. They finally have met in person here, and have been able to hash things out. And again, I guarantee that that meeting took place so they could discuss further support, further military support from the U.S. for Ukraine. That about wraps up our primary headlines for Ukraine this evening. We're now going to hop into our community aggregated reporting from our Discord server community, our Intel analysts from over on the Discord server here. I'm going to go through about the past 12 to 24 hours here of situation room reports, but I'll also touch on a few from the past week as well. Let's go over here to our big screen here so I can get some of these up on screen for you guys. Our first one coming from Kayuka, our power poster, and also the what would you say, the owner and operator of the account, as it's called, YouTube channel, again, who has been providing daily updates, not just in our situation room over on the Discord, but now in his short 10-minute daily reports, which he posts to the account YouTube channel. Highly recommend you guys go check those out. Kayuka, thank you so much for those. Our first report coming from Kayuka comes from the Ministry of Defense, the UK, Ministry of Defense. This is the latest defense intelligence update on the situation in Ukraine for the 18th of January. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. By the end of the 16th of January 2023, Ukrainian forces had highly likely withdrawn from the Donbass town of Soledar, leaving Russian military and Wagner Group proxy forces in control. Ukrainian forces have likely established a new defensive line to the west, or new defensive lines, plural, to the west of Soledar. Russia's advance on Soledar primarily consisted of Wagner forces and was a supporting operation aimed to enable the eventual envelopment of the larger settlement of Bakhmut. One of Ukraine's two main supply routes into Bakhmut is now under increasing pressure. Imagery shows that since the start of January 2023, south and east of Bakhmut has continued to be subjected to intense artillery bombardment. Ukrainian forces almost certainly continue to defend against Russian forces on the outskirts of the city. Really quickly, little tangent here. If we hop into our battle map here, I can actually show you some details of what we're talking about here. So if we go ahead and zoom in on Bakhmut and Soledar, you can see now that the Russian forces here at Soledar have taken the town. Okay, their hope is that they can cut off supply routes, Ukrainian supply routes, to some of these areas in and around Bakhmut, and slowly and incrementally they are making some progress. Unfortunately, westward here. In and around Soledar and Bakhmut. You can see the direction of military movement here as those Russian forces continue to push forward. Another thing to point out here, this gray zone here is quite literally the gray zone, or no man's land, as I would refer to it, as many would refer to it. This pocket here is what you could say is in a constant state of uncertainty. Where certain objectives are being taken by Russian forces, retaken by Ukrainian forces, and so it's only over time that we kind of see where this actual front line, this red line here, which is what the Russian forces hold, will snap forward here as those as the Russians make progress moving further westward. So again, that's kind of what they're trying to do, is encircle Bakhmut here, cut off the supply routes to Bakhmut, encircle any remaining Ukrainian forces that are in that area, again, they're slowly making progress even to the south here. You can see them jutting out, starting to make some progress, pushing westward here, and then up towards Soledar here. I could expect they'll try to kind of conduct a pincer movement with their forces from the south and their forces from the north as well, and try to cut off those Ukrainian forces, in Bakhmut. Right, let's head back over to our main screen here so we can continue taking a look at some of these Situation Room reports. Another post here coming from our Situation Room from Ukrainska Pravda talks about Putin suddenly claims that representatives of, quote, many European countries took part in the siege of Leningrad. I know he gave a statement. He gave a statement today. I don't know if this was actually part of that. I believe it was. He recently, over the past few days, has gotten, I guess you could say, nostalgic, so to speak. He's been talking a lot about Leningrad and some of those battles that took place during World War II. Let's read you a little bit from this article here. Russian dictator Vladimir Putin has suddenly stated that representatives of many European countries took part in the siege of Leningrad during World War II. The source being Putin during events marking the 80th anniversary of the breakthrough of the siege of Leningrad. Quote from him saying, representatives of many European countries took part in the siege of Leningrad and committed crimes. We have never talked about this before because of certain tolerance and in order not to spoil relations, not to ruin the background of our relations. But it was not only the Leningrad front, it was everywhere. Just look at the Blue Division near Stalingrad, a unit of volunteers from Francoist Spain within the German army on the Eastern Front during World War II. Some details here. At the same time, the occupiers' leader did not say which European countries he had meant. Putin is a well-known connoisseur of alternative history. In particular, he believes that Ukraine was created by Lenin. The dictator has even written several pseudo-historical articles about Ukrainians and Russians, quote, being one nation. In some more news coming from Ukrainska Pravda here, a Russian foreign minister compares Russians with Jews and West with Hitler, he says. Source here coming from the Kremlin-aligned news outlet TASS. Quote, he said, just as Napoleon mobilized practically all of Europe against the Russian Empire, as Hitler mobilized and put most of the European countries under the jackboot and threw them against the Soviet Union. Now the U.S. has formed a coalition of almost all Europeans who are part of NATO and EU members with the same old task, the final solution of the Russian question. Again, you can argue that we've had this same coalition since World War II, the Allies in World War II. So again, that kind of doesn't make too much sense there. In a post here coming from Anton Gerashenko on Twitter here, a verified Twitter source, saying, what is happening now in Ukraine is a result of many years of preparation by the USA and their satellites to launch a war against the Russian Federation. This comes from Lavrov speaking to Russian diplomats. Let's take a look at what he said here.
То, что происходит сейчас на Украине, это результат многолетней подготовки Соединенных Штатов и их сателлитов к началу.
So again, he's talking about a global hybrid war here being waged against the Russian Federation. This just kind of continues into that narrative that they've been building for quite some time now. Honestly, a lot of this kind of sounds like a broken record. They've been making some of these same statements for since even before the invasion began, but their rhetoric has increased significantly since then. Coming from Rakasan on the Situation Room on the Discord server here, a post from Flash, unverified on Twitter, For us, Crimea is Ukraine. The Donbass is Ukraine, and it will remain so. We have said from the very beginning that we cannot and will not support Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Serbian President Alexander Vučić in an interview with Bloomberg. So again, basically saying that they consider Crimea and the Donbass to be part of Ukraine proper. Another post here coming from Rakasan. Thank you for this. YouTube will be closed in the Russian Federation in the near future, and to those who continue to use it will be found out and will suffer the well-deserved punishment, says the head of the PMC Wagner, Prigozhin. Now, this is very significant because I know and watch many quite popular Russian YouTubers, all right? And a few of them don't even do political content. There's one guy, I believe he's Dutch, if I'm not mistaken. He runs a YouTube channel called Survival Russia. He's made pretty good content. I really liked his content. I've been watching it for years now. At the start of the invasion, you could tell he did get a little political for a minute, and then immediately kind of rescinded a lot of the statements he had made. And he likes to stay neutral about a lot of Russian geopolitics and stuff, but there's a lot of YouTubers out there that do involve themselves in the Russian political sphere. Mainly 1420. That's a pretty popular Russian YouTuber. He does like on the street interviews with citizens in Russia. And there's many others. There's many others that I've seen, in recent weeks, making videos about mobilization and making videos of, about how they're going to be leaving Russia, etc. And a lot of those people are kind of putting their necks on the line, so to speak, as they make these videos. And so this is a pretty significant statement here by the head of the Wagner PMC that they possibly be not just the Russian government, but maybe that they will take action against some of these YouTubers. It's kind of a scary thought, and I hope we don't see anything come of it, as the Russians really crack down on freedom of information and freedom of speech within Russia to curb some of the negative effects and backlash they've gotten from how they've conducted themselves in the ongoing war in Ukraine. Some other news here from Kayuka. Talks about Russian propaganda spreading fake leaflets about mobilization of dogs in Ukraine, as they call them here. Oh, okay. We got to do a Capatcha here, guys. All right. Parking meters. I believe this is a parking meter. I believe that is a parking meter as well. And verify. There we go. Okay. Ukrainoform here. Spreading fake leaflets about mobilization of dogs in Ukraine. So when I first saw the headline here, I actually thought they were talking about mobilization of Ukrainian troops. Kenneth, thank you so much for the super chat there. Much appreciated. I thought that they were actually talking about Ukrainian forces. It has come abundantly clear to me since clicking on this article that they are talking about actual dogs. I'll go ahead and read some of this article here. In fact, Kayuka actually gave me a little bit of a summary, so I'll read that instead because I think it'll kind of bring it to a point a little bit better. Shepherd, Labrador, Boxer, Rottweiler, and other large, strong dog breeds. The Kremlin, mass media, and Z Telegram channels are sharing the photos of leaflets that allegedly call on Ukrainians to put their pets, namely large dogs, on the military records from February 1st, starting February 1st. In case of non-fulfillment of such requirement, dog owners may face criminal liability. Okay, so criminal charges. The dogs put on the military records are allegedly mobilized and sent to the front. The use of the wrong abbreviation VSU Armed Forces of Ukraine in Russian instead of ZSU Armed Forces of Ukraine in Ukrainian, as well as a phone number that does not exist, indicate that indeed the leaflets are fake. Let's see if we could find a picture here of the leaflet. Here is the leaflet here. Showing this little dog here, meant to pull at the heartstrings of Russian citizens, make them think, oh, God, those evil Ukrainians, how could they send their poor little dogs to the front line? Absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely 100% ridiculous. That they would even think that would work, but I guess maybe they do. Another post here coming from Rakasan. Coming from an unverified Twitter source so keep that in mind. More signs Putin is scared. Nice secluded place. Soldiers don't have magazines in their guns, only vehicle traffic in his security detail and police, and no one else there except him and his bodyguards. Of course, he is watching out for. I mean, in the situation Putin's in. Of course, he's going to surround himself with nothing but 1,000,000 bodyguards and make sure that their operational security is extremely tight. I believe he is indeed scared and worried that the Ukrainians will try to, and probably have tried, to make an attempt on his life, and most likely will continue to do so in the coming weeks and months as this conflict continues. Another post here. This is an evening report of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. Kayuka sent over a summary saying, I only quote troop movements or important events and not the shellings. Thank you so much for that. Kind of keeps things condensed here. So it's in Ukraine. So I'll go ahead and I'll just read you guys the summary here, which Kayuka translated for us. Thank you to him. The enemy does not give up its intentions to capture the Donetsk region within the administrative borders. The main efforts are concentrated on conducting an offensive in the Bakhmut direction, conducts unsuccessful offensive actions in the Edvivka, I believe that's the Edvivka, if not Ediviv direction. In addition, he is trying to, again, they refer to the Russian forces as he quite often in these reports. Again, that's kind of just a translation thing. In addition, the Russian forces are trying to improve the tactical position in the Liman direction. In the Zaporizhia direction, he carried out unsuccessful offensive actions in the areas of the settlements of Oriv and Golepole. The enemy is defending in the Kupiansk and Novopolivka and Kherson directions. I'm not sure, Kayuka, if you just posted posted an edit to that there, but I saw that update. Thank you for that. Joint exercises of the air and space forces of the Russian Federation and the Air Force and Air Defense Forces of the Republic of Belarus are ongoing on the territory of the Republic of Belarus. Practical tasks of the interaction of air and ground components in the offensive operations are being worked out. Russian occupying forces do not stop looting in the temporarily occupied territories. Thus, in the settlements of Goronostavivka, Keri, and many others of the Kherson region, the occupiers, moving in groups of about 10 to 15 people, search the empty homes of local residents and take away all household appliances and furniture, basically everything they can get their hands on that is worth money to them. I guarantee, so people say, they're stealing furniture. I don't think they're stealing furniture to keep. My guess is that they're stealing furniture to burn, to warm, to keep themselves warm in bunkers and shelters, to fill their wood stoves. Again, middle of winter, cutting down unseasoned wood isn't always the best thing to burn. So, if you can get dry lumber from things like furniture, building materials like inside houses and stuff. That's more easily burned. It doesn't generate as much creosote, which is basically a buildup that happens inside your chimney or your stovepipe, which can cause fires. All sorts of problems. And so again, I think most of the furniture is probably being burned. I would imagine Ukrainian forces are doing that where they have to as well, because as I mentioned earlier in this report, a large portion of Ukraine is without power and without heat, especially in the east where the brunt of the fighting is occurring. So we have a post here, again, just touching a bit on, this comes from Kayuka, this touches a bit more on the crashes near the kindergarten in Bravary. Again, helicopter crashed next to that kindergarten and a residential building in Bravary, which is a suburb of Kyiv Oblast, starting on fire. That, again, occurred January 18th, so earlier today. I think it was about 17 hours ago, if I'm not mistaken. In fact, I could just look on our live UA map. Yeah, it was about 17, 18 hours ago that occurred. So, yeah, about 18 hours ago. So, we're getting into yesterday territory with that, but nonetheless, it is still important to cover. Irina Paranishnikova A Kyiv Oblast police spokeswoman said on television that 5 people were injured due to the crash, and there were more people, but didn't specify the number. Of course, we now know that those numbers have increased significantly. Again, Bravary is a city with a pre-war population of about 100,000 people located just east of Kyiv. Touching a little bit more on that power, on the Ukrainian power system. Sorry, post coming from Ukrainska Pravda here. Talks about a significant deficit in Ukraine's power system persists. Emergency power outages implemented in 8 oblasts. Okay, so that is quite large. For those of you in the States, you could think about it as a state or even a county, even though in Ukraine, some oblasts are the size of some small states we have here in the U.S. I mean, they're pretty significant in size, but I would say they're more closely size-wise to a county. But electricity consumption in Ukraine is predicted to be slightly lower than on Tuesday. At the same time, there's a significant power deficit in electricity system. Emergency power outages have been implemented in 8 oblasts. A quote here saying, "Warm weather contributes to this at the same time. There's a significant power deficit in the electricity system, especially during the evening consumption peak. Currently, electricity production does not cover a quarter of consumption needs in the country." So again, they're saying that it's predicted to be slightly lower than yesterday. So I was talking earlier about how this is kind of a double-edged sword. It's a good thing. So it's a good thing that it's warmer this winter in Ukraine and in Europe because they're having to use less gas and less power. So that took away Russia's ability to damage the energy. I would say the energy economics of Europe. Okay, let's just say that. All right. But on the other hand, with these power outages and stuff, people are still without, resources they need. People are still, basically living in cold homes. There are people that have died of exposure in their homes and apartments in Ukraine. So again, it's an ongoing crisis on the ground, directly due to their failing power infrastructure, which again directly due to Russian bombardment of said infrastructure. It says here again, Ukraine Negro emphasizes the reason for the deficit is that power plants, generating capacities, and the high voltage network were damaged as a result of Russian missile and drone attacks, which have been happening over since the start of the full-scale invasion. The latest attack, though, caused significant damage to several power units of thermal power plants. At the same time, consumption limits for the whole day have been applied for all regional network operators. Okay, so again, this is a problem widespread across all of Ukraine. In a continuation of some of the same misinformation that we've seen since the launch of the full-scale invasion, Russia's UN representative, I believe some of you gave him the nickname the Thumb at one point during the start of the invasion. He has made false claims at a Security Council meeting. The Ukraine's air defense equipment caused the Dnipro tragedy. Again, we've seen this this pattern repeat many times at these UN Security Council meetings. Here, source comes from Russian state-owned news agency TASS. A quote from Nebenzia. Says the Russian missile, which was launched at one of the city's infrastructure facilities, was shot down by Ukraine's air defense equipment. Since the air defense system was located in a residential neighborhood in violation of international humanitarian law, which you care about so much about, the missile hit a residential building after it was shot down, they say there. So again, we know that this is misinformation. We know that the building in Dnipro was a direct hit from a Russian missile. Another post here coming from the Kyiv Independent talks about almost 14,000 Ukrainian children have been abducted by Russia and deported to Russian territory. Daria Hermeshchuk, Ukraine's presidential advisor for children's rights and rehabilitation, reported on January 17th that only 125 children who were illegally deported to Russia have been returned to Ukraine. Quote, we managed to identify and verify the data of at least 13,899 children who were abducted and deported by the Russian army, and unfortunately we can say that only 125 of them we managed to return home. She also added that Russian troops have killed 456 children and injured 897 since the beginning of Russia's all-out war. In the continuation of some news I reported on earlier, Russian embassy in Sweden recognizes Crimea as part of Ukraine. On Tuesday, the official Twitter page of the Russian embassy in Sweden published a map on which Crimea is marked as the territory of Ukraine. On the map, which compares average fuel prices in Europe without indicating the source of data, Ukraine is depicted in internationally recognized border, including Ukraine. So you can see that there on this map there in yellow. You can see it is quite clearly labeled here as part of Ukraine proper. Some news about the tanks that they're going to want to send over to Ukraine. Germany's Scholz not drawn on Ukrainian tank decision. Zelensky urges faster action. Let's take a look. Vladimir Zelensky has stepped up calls for Ukraine's army to be supplied with heavy tanks and urged, quote, resolve and speed of decision-making from Western allies in the face of resistance from the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz. Addressing a package gathering at the World Economic Forum in Davos via video link on Wednesday, Ukraine's president warned that, quote, tyranny is outpacing democracy as Germany hesitates over whether to supply the country with Leopard 2 tanks. Again, Germany made calls today saying, they would like the U.S. to provide tanks to Ukraine if they are going to be sending tanks into Ukraine as well. Speaking more to that U.S. Aid going to Ukraine, the U.S. is prepping another major military package for Ukraine. Again, they're gearing up to announce a new major weapons package for Ukraine on Friday. So this Friday. So I'll have that for you guys next week in the Intel Report. We'll be talking about that. As top military leaders around the world gather in Germany to discuss how to help Kyiv in its fight against Russia, according to 3 U.S. officials and another person familiar with the discussions. While the next tranche will include additional artillery, ammunition, and armor, likely Stryker armored combat vehicles, the U.S. is not expected to sign off on those American M1 Abrams main battle tanks, said the people who spoke on condition of anonymity to discuss the talks ahead of an announcement. So again, we'll have more news on that announcement, that Friday announcement of that military package with next week's report. Talking a little bit more about that German decision here. Berlin says they won't allow exports of German tanks to Ukraine unless U.S. sends its own. North Atlantic Treaty Organization allies have over 2,000 German-made Leopard tanks. So that's quite a few, and I guarantee they would come in pretty handy on the battlefield of Ukraine. We have some recent satellite pictures here of the Berodonovichi Air Base in central Belarus. It shows a large number of Russian/Belarusian Su-27s, Su-30s, Su-34s, and MiG-29s being seen on runways and aprons around the base. Now, this comes as there's been increasing signs that Russia possibly, with the aid of Belarusian forces, might be looking to launch, or at least prepare to launch, a renewed offensive on Ukraine from the north, again, with the help directly of the Belarusian forces. Now, again, it's still uncertain if they're going to come into Ukraine with just Russian forces or if Belarus will join in on the fight. We actually have a live chat poll over on the YouTube channel this evening, which asks if you guys think Russia will go ahead and launch that renewed attack with Belarusian military forces. Again, if you haven't voted in that poll yet, make sure you head over there to vote in that poll. And again, we'll cover that towards the end of the broadcast. When we do our Q&A, we'll end that poll and we'll take a look at what you guys think about that question there. In some video here, it shows in Donetsk Oblast, Ukrainian army destroyed a Russian two S-1 122 millimeter self-propelled howitzer and damaged a 2A-36 Giatsint-B 152 millimeter towed howitzer using M982 Excalibur guided projectiles. Let's take a look at this video here. Okay, we got some Rammstein there, which again I'm gonna have to mute so I don't get copyright strike. But let's take a look at the video nonetheless. So you can see here again that equipment being and actually cooking off. Looks like some ammo cooked off there as well when that strike hit that equipment there. You can see another clip, and these are shot from a drone, top down. Again, these were struck using M982 Excalibur guided projectiles. Absolutely decimating that Russian equipment there, and you could see definitely, I think, looked like it cooked off some of that, some of those munitions as well. Interesting footage there. So we have another post here coming from Kayuka on the Situation Room. He said this comes from Trent Talenko, unverified on Ukraine. Says this is one of the most important NATO-Ukraine logistical developments of the Russo-Ukrainian war. There's now an active rail line from Ukraine to a Romanian sea port. So again, they've opened this rail line there connecting Ukraine directly to Romania, which again, there is NATO equipment in Romania, and so it's possible they could use that rail line for transporting some of that equipment into the combat theater. Another post here coming from that Trent Talenko. This confirms their use by Ukraine in the current war. I believe these are Tu-141 UAV launchers here. Show some video here again of those being transported around within Ukrainian territory, I believe, if not on Russian territory. You can see kind of a picture of one of those launchers here. Basically, you have large UAV systems mounted on them. They can be then launched off to hit targets wherever they see fit. We have another video here coming from Kayuka. I think this is a good one to show. This is some drone footage. Let's go ahead and pause that. Pause that music there, or mute that music, sorry. This just shows some destruction. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is somewhere in the east, if not near Soledar and Bakhmut. Interesting footage. I'm not sure if this is coming from like an FPV drone or like a fixed-wing drone. How it's banking to the left and right kind of makes me feel like it's maybe a fixed-wing. Like kind of like a... not like a Mavic drone, with rotors, but something like a fixed wing, like kind of like a mini RC plane, so to speak, with how it's banking left, right. That could be the case, or it could be like an FPV drone, what we're seeing here. But you can see absolute decimation of this. This does look like maybe Soledar, Bakhmut, or one of the outlying areas. I could be wrong on that, so don't quote me on it. But that's besides the point. It really, we're just looking at the sheer level of destruction here. You can see just how shattered and just torn to pieces every tree is, every building is. Only thing that's left is dust, debris, and the shells of these buildings that once stood here. The Ukrainian words there at the bottom makes me think maybe... Oh God, what's the name of that town? We could find Kayuka, of course, coming in here with clutch. It's Marinka, yes, next to Donetsk. Okay, so I know it was in the east somewhere. This definitely looks like the east of Ukraine. He says it's Marinka, and right as he sent me that over, I saw the M here in this Ukrainian word. I was like, where do I know that this is Marinka? I don't speak Ukrainian, but I do know. I after following this war for so long, I've been able to kind of I can see Ukrainian town names in Ukrainian, be like, okay, that's, I'm pretty confident as to which one's which. But thank you, Kayuka, for letting us know. He says the drone enters from the north, flies along the Druzibi Central Road all the way to the south exit and back up. So let's back up the footage a little bit here so you can see. Again, just showing the kind of just the sheer level of destruction here in some of these areas. I'd like to say that some of these areas have been bombarded even more intensely. I mean, with modern munitions and their capabilities, I feel like the amount of destruction is even more so than you'd see in some areas of Europe during World War II. Like, I know we saw entire towns and cities decimated, and you watch movies and you look at footage of World War II, and you watch movies like Saving Private Ryan, you see those scenes of destruction. But I feel like this is almost even on another level of destruction. Just the sheer amount of pulverization which these towns have undertaken here. I mean, you can see it in this footage here. You look at just the trees alone. It's like every square inch of the ground has been saturated with explosives. All right, every single square inch of these areas has been absolutely decimated. There's not one stone, leaf, or building left unturned, so to speak, by the Russian forces. As this fighting continues. And it's footage like this. I showed you some in last week's report as well, that tank footage. And I hope to show you a clip of this in every week's report. Just kind of show, because it's footage like this that really puts it into perspective. Being on the ground and getting footage from on the ground is one thing, but when you see it from above like this, and you see the sheer amount of destruction that is taken on such a wide scale, it really puts it into perspective, because we see time and time again these videos coming from the ground, of small skirmishes and street battles and stuff that occur in this war. But when you see it like this, you kind of get a grip. You get an understanding of really how widespread and how large of a scale this combat is being conducted on. Somebody posted out in the Tony Wilson said in the um, in the live chat here, said these aren't really the most modern munitions, though. Russia is launching like everything that the Soviets ever made. Yes, that's true. There is a lot of older munitions, but there's also a lot of new stuff as well, and you can see the destructive power of modern military equipment here, fully fledged here. I mean, again, just looking at the footage is proof in the pudding. It's literally like every square inch. This looks like something you'd see after. I mean, this is even more damage, honestly, than a hurricane. I would imagine. This reminds me of flood footage, or not flood, but tsunami footage. I believe from Japan, from earlier in the 2000s. I forgot the exact specifics, which tsunami that was, but I remember seeing footage of that back in the day, and just like just everything just being wiped out, and nothing but just being a slurry of debris, rubble, and mud. And that's kind of what we're seeing here now. And yeah, as Epimu says, if it's not concrete, it's gone. Yeah, it's very true. And I mean, if you pause the video and just look at the ground, some places, it's just it's an actual, like, a slurry, I think is the best word for it, of debris. Okay, it's just everything has been atomized, and just pulverized and turned into just, again, a mess, of what once was. So again, it's footage like this that is very enlightening as to the sheer scale of the combat and destruction on the ground in Ukraine. Another post here just came in. I got two more here to end us off on. This comes from Brady Africk on Twitter here. Again, unverified. It says activity has increased at Russia's Taganrog Central Air Base over the past month. This base is one of several used by Russian aircraft operating over Ukraine. Satellite imagery from today shows several transport planes as well as new paths created by vehicles and equipment. Let's take a look here at this video here. This is December 6th, okay? You can see two large Russian aircraft there on those runways. Let's go and enlarge this here. And you can see some helicopters there. This is December 6th. Now, this is January 18th. You can see 11 large Russian aircraft there and new vehicle pathways as well. Taxiways, pathways, whatever you would consider those at an airfield. But it does look like at this airbase here, they are ramping up activity. And then I had one more here for you guys, if I can find it under the stack of posts here that we have. Okay, here it is. This comes from the Institute for the Study of War. This was posted by Rakasan. Thank you so much. This comes from Flash on Twitter, but really we just care about the Institute of the Study of War post here. It says the ISW says Putin may soon declare war on Ukraine and a new wave of mobilization. Keeping in mind, guys, that up till this point they consider the war in Ukraine their special military operation, as we all know. We've all come to know that's what the Russians refer to this as. I'll go ahead and I'll read you guys the post here. It says Russian Defense Ministry Sergei Shoigu announced in January 17th that he will implement Russian President Vladimir Putin's directive to conduct large-scale military reforms between 2023 and 2026 to expand Russia's conventional armed forces, likely in preparation for a protracted war in Ukraine, and also to set conditions to build a significantly stronger Russian military quickly. Shoigu stated that Putin ordered Russian authorities to increase the number of Russian military personnel to 1.5 million from the current 1.35 million. Shoigu outlined the Russian Ministry of Defense will institute unspecified large-scale changes to the composition, complement, and administrative divisions of the Russian armed forces between the years 2023 and 2026. So basically, from now and for the next few years here, Shoigu noted that Russia also needs to strengthen the key structural components of the Russian armed forces. Shoigu announced that Russia will reestablish the Moscow and Leningrad military districts, form a new army corps in Karelia on the Finnish border, form new self-sufficient force groupings in occupied Ukraine, and form 12 new maneuver divisions. Shoigu added that Russia needs to increase its capabilities to adequately prepare its forces by developing more training grounds and increasing the number of trainers and specialists. So again, some Russian military information there and updates. We're now going to hop into our open source intelligence tools. Let me get some of these closed out here for us this evening. We'll get to this one a little later. Let's go over to, first we're going to start with live universal awareness map, and we'll kind of get updated on everything that's been happening on the ground in Ukraine for about the past 12 hours or so. Get some of the specifics here. I'll actually start here at about 18 hours ago. Again, we had the 5 wounded in that helicopter crash in Bravary. That was then updated to 3 dead and 5 injured. That's now, again, been updated to about 16 dead, 3 children, even though it said 2 here, 10 wounded. 11 hours ago, Canada pledged to provide Ukraine with 200 armored personnel carriers in a new package of military assistance. So not just the U.S. Providing a new round of assistance, but we also have Canada getting in on the action, sending over those armored personnel carriers. 9 hours ago, the International Atomic Energy Association chief last month, Prime Minister Denis Shamal and I agreed to establish the IAEA permanent presence in all Ukraine's nuclear power plants. Today in Kyiv, I confirmed the support and assistance missions in Ukraine are now a reality. The organization is fully committed to support Ukraine in efforts to prevent a nuclear accident from occurring. As some of you that have been here since the launch of the full-scale invasion may know, there's been many times where nuclear crises have come very close to happening here in Ukraine. We have the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant and many other nuclear power plants in Ukraine that have come fairly close to having an accident because of ongoing conflict and fighting in the areas around them, and actually sometimes directly on plant property. Chernobyl, another one which is I think worth mentioning as well. 7 hours ago, a statement from the President of the United States and the POTUS and the FLOTUS on the helicopter crash that killed Minister of Internal Affairs Denis Monastyrsky and other senior Ukrainian officials. Let's take a look. Do they actually have a source for that so I can get that open for you guys here? So again, this is from both Joe and Jill, the First Lady here. Jill and I send our deepest condolences to the families of all those killed in the tragic helicopter crash in Ukraine this morning, including Minister of Internal Affairs Denis Monastyrsky and other senior Ukrainian government officials. Our hearts are also with the dozens of civilians who were killed or injured, including precious children and their families. We grieve with all those who are mourning in this heartbreaking tragedy. Mr. Monasterisky and his team were deeply involved in the preservation of Ukraine's democracy, both its defense against Russian aggression and the vital work of reforms to strengthen Ukraine's institutions through this war and into the future. A reformer and patriot, Mr. Monasterisky championed the will of Ukrainian people. We will continue to honor that legacy through efforts to strengthen Ukraine's institutions and in our unfailing partnership with the people of Ukraine to keep the flame of freedom bright. Today, we are praying for healing for the wounded and comfort for those who have lost loved ones. The United States stands with the people of Ukraine in the face of this tragedy and for as long as it takes. So again, it is significant. This strike that occurred, sorry, not strike, but this crash of this helicopter that occurred, again, it's still being investigated. It could be possible that it was sabotage. We don't know yet if it was sabotage or if this just was a mishap, a mechanical failure, or what. We will know more information. We will know more information with next week's report. Probably within the coming few days here, we'll have conclusions from that investigation. However, it is a very significant event to occur here. Again, this the highest, I would say, the highest-ranking Ukrainian governmental personnel that have been killed so far in this war. Our last post here 5 hours ago, U.S. aid intends to provide additional $125 million in energy support for Ukraine for equipment like additional gas turbines, high-voltage auto transformers, distribution substations, repair equipment, and backup power for Kyiv's water supply and district heating services. So if we refresh our Ukraine map here and just take a look, we can kind of get an idea of what our front line looks like. All of the strikes that have happened over the past few days here are listed here on this map. However, we'll go ahead now and take a look at our battle maps because they give a better picture of what those situations look like on the ground. So, starting up here at the north, again, many of these areas in green have been retaken by Ukrainian forces and are currently free of Russian forces. They are still under constant bombardment and they are, under constant bombardment and threat from Russian forces. So you can't say that they are out of the danger zone, but they have been retaken by Ukrainian forces. A lot of these areas shaded in green. All of this shaded in red, again, is held by Russian forces. Starting here up in the north, you can see it's been pretty quiet along some of this contact line here. I mean, there has been a few events here and there. And in fact, if we look at our heat map, I can actually show you. That's probably where we should start, actually, is with our heat map here. So on this heat map here, this shows for the past 18 days where the concentrations of strikes and conflict has occurred. We have strikes in Kramatorsk. Again, those were pretty significant. We also have, if I actually go over here to Dnipro, we can see strikes along Dnipro, the entire Dnipro River, in Kherson as well. Ochikiv, I believe that is how you pronounce that. Ochikiv there, and many of these areas. So Dnipro here, I believe that's the this is the strike here on that apartment building, which again, many casualties in that strike, unfortunately. But you can see, so this kind of shows just where the concentrations of activity have been. We could see here, these are some events that were recorded, Russian military equipment being transported. Take a look here. So again, this is in Belarusian territory. So we can see here a train here, most likely heading for the Ukrainian, near the Ukrainian border of this, these look like artillery, piece of artillery equipment, and trucks as well. I'm not a military equipment expert, but part of me thinks that if you see here at the beginning of the video, we see pieces of artillery and some trucks as well. Not sure if maybe those are, like you have one truck loaded with ammunition and then the actual piece of artillery, which would then be towed by the truck. Again, I'm not an expert on military hardware here, but just an observation here that I've made. But I saw some MLRS as well. When they turn the camera back around, you see some MLRS right there. So that's a multiple launch rocket system there. Quite a few of them, actually. And again, with the Z there within the square identification marker there. Yeah, so quite a bit of Russian military equipment there being transported. We have another post here showing Russian military equipment. Another trainload of Russian vehicles arrived in Belarus. It included mostly transport vehicles painted with the Z. So again, keep in mind, guys, our live chat poll this evening and the question that it poses. And if some of you maybe made your decision in that poll, do you reconsider now after seeing some of these posts that I'm showing you here on screen? Again, of all this Russian military equipment heading, and again, one thing about this equipment is it has those axis of attack markers on them, so the Z's. Maybe could that have something to do with it? Who knows? Again, I'm not an expert on military hardware here, but this looks like a lot of maybe supply and personnel trucks here. Of course, we did in that other video, we saw some artillery as well being transported. These are some KAMAZ and Ural trucks, a BAZ 6306, 5 fuel tankers. So anti-aircraft guns, field kitchens and water trucks as well, also headed to. So they're headed to Brest. So if we look here on our map here, this is Brest. So this is the location that they're heading here, which is actually to the west, which is interesting. Again, and I've talked about this before, if the Russians were to conduct another renewed offensive on Ukraine, it's most likely. So this area here on the map, in fact, I'm going to switch over to. We're going to have to switch back over to our battle map here so I can show you what I'm talking about. So this is Brest here in the west. This is Lviv. This is Poland here. So you have Poland, and you have kind of that western border of Ukraine that comes right down here past Lviv, Slovakia, Romania, Poland here. Now, Belarus kind of shares this border with both Poland and Ukraine. Brest is right next to Poland, all right? This area here is all wetlands. It is almost untraversable, okay? They would not be able to, very successfully at least, launch an attack on Kyiv down here. They would have to, so this area in green here is where the Russians originally came over the border from the north into Ukraine to launch their attack on Kyiv. If they were to do that again, they most likely would launch that attack from this area here, coming down through Chernobyl. Through the exclusion zone. However, the Ukrainian forces have they're significantly dug in these areas. Now, for them to be sending a lot of equipment over into Brest, could it be that they're maybe looking to then transfer that equipment on trains over to the northern border here? Again, it's hard to tell. Or are they thinking about maybe possibly launching an offensive down, maybe to cut off the border to Ukraine, which would cut off supply lines? That would be a very tall order. However, Ukraine doesn't have very many troops in the west of the country, okay? Most of their troops are focused around Kyiv, around the capital, and in the east, okay? There isn't many Ukrainian military forces in the west of the country. Could it be that Russia possibly would look to maybe move down from the north and cut off supply lines heading into Ukraine? Possible. However, I would assume it's unlikely. But it's interesting that they're sending this military equipment to Brest. Could it be a fake, like we've talked about many times on the show, like them positioning troops and forces and equipment in Belarus? Could that be to get the Ukrainians to pull forces away from the east to some of these areas to reinforce them, thus taking some of the pressure off the Russian forces here, allowing them to make further advances in the east of the country? Possible. However, for them to be moving. Let's go back to our heat map here. For them to be moving train loads of equipment like this, I don't know. It's one of those things that only time is going to tell here. I mean, there is post after post after post that I've been seeing this week of equipment being moved around within Belarus. It's to the point where it's too much for it to be training. I feel like it's too much even for it to be kind of that punt fake, so to speak. again, only time will tell here. Another post here showing, this is a YouTube video again showing another train load
Прибыла техника управления сил.
of this
Добирались двое
equipment.
суток, добрались удачно. Прибыли на территорию Республики Беларусь, где наши деды и прадеды проливали
Okay, I
кровь.
don't have a translation for this statements here being made. But again, you can see,
Деды и прадеды
you know, more trainloads of equipment headed in into Belarus. Not just in Belarus, but they're moving stuff around that's already inside Belarus. It's been there for a while. They're moving stuff around to different areas. So that's interesting. Where they're moving it is something we're going to have to keep an eye on in the coming days. Anyway, getting back to kind of the brunt of the heat map here, you can kind of see where the concentrations of conflict has occurred here, of events have occurred here. Of course, Soledar outline areas of Soledar, Bakhmut, to the south of Bakhmut in Optini, and many of these other areas here. You can see strikes by Ukrainians in Severodonetsk, and many areas actually in Donetsk and Luhansk have been struck by Ukrainian forces over the past week or so here. Again, strikes in Donetsk there. So this kind of gives you a good idea. If you go back and we look at, so this is everything that started since this is everything that has occurred since the start of the full-scale invasion, so to speak. So you can see here, mainly concentrated around the eastern front here. And then, of course, Kyiv, the battle for Kyiv. Then you have these outlying strikes, which are mostly from bombardment. You have events that have occurred on Russian territory proper, on Belarusian territory as well. Not all of these are like military strikes. Some of these are just events of you know, importance. Again, things like you know, military equipment being moved around and stuff like that. So, moving on from this, go back to my battle map here, and we can take a look at some of the other posts here of significance. So again, if we just take a look at some of the directions of advancement, if you go in the south here, you don't see any of those arrows that show movement here. Okay, so this the direction of attack, so to speak. For the most part, this front line in the south, okay, has stagnated. All right, so you don't see very many reports of any force movements here by the Russian troops on the ground. The majority of the conflict has been occurring in this portion of the east here. Of course, Donetsk, Lysychansk area, Bakhmut area, you know, Luhansk. Well, even up here, you see this stagnating in the north as well. It's like I kind of mentioned this earlier in the show. You do see kind of up here by Chervon-Popivka, again, kind of a mouthful there, so bear with me. There is some movements here being made by the Russian forces. I don't think there's any actually Wagner forces up here. This is all Russian forces up here, which is interesting because we've actually seen the most success where those Wagner PMC forces are positioned, because they're just kind of like throwing everything they have at the Ukrainians. It's kind of, again, like they call it the meat grinder, and that's a really good way to describe it. You can see here near Bakhmut, PMC Wagner forces are posted up here. That's where a lot of progress has been made by the Russian forces over the past weeks. I say a lot. It's the only progress really that they've made over the past few weeks, I should say that. So is, again, Soledar, Bakhmut, kind of in the Donetsk region, Luhansk region, kind of in the middle here, I would say, between Donetsk and Luhansk. Again, mainly focused around Bakhmut, Soledar. That's where we've seen the brunt of the fighting. However, down here near Advidka, Pisky, which, by the way, Pisky has been hot since 2014. Okay, a lot of people don't realize this, but Pisky and this area of Ukraine near Donetsk has been hot since 2014. This is almost nothing has changed here. You know, the Ukrainians have held this territory since 2014. I just the other day I was watching a Ukrainian documentary about fighting that occurred in Pisky and many of these towns and areas here in 2014, and it's kind of mind blowing to me that, you know, the Ukrainians are still holding down this area all these years later in 2023. So we'll go here and refresh this map here that I have some other information here to show you. So again, I showed you this in last week's report. This kind of shows not only Russian troop movements, but supply line routes as well. Kind of direction of movement that the Russians are taking along some of these roadways into Bakhmut. Different points of interest have been marked on these maps as well, kind of just showing what's been going on here. These arrows here, again, I would like to just reiterate that this contact line here in the south, for the most part, has stagnated. There is still occasional, flare-ups of conflict down there, but they've been mostly holding steady. There is exchanges of gunfire, I would say, on a daily basis. You can't understate that. But for the most part, when it comes to changes in this contact line, it's been pretty stagnant for the past few weeks here. Switching over to, we'll take a look at our naval maps here. Take a look at some of the activity that has occurred in that space over the past few days, and I'll correlate that with some of our news from our naval radar channel here in the Discord server. So again, commercial traffic in the Black Sea has been pretty consistent over recent weeks. We haven't seen too many developments there. We did see last week we saw Russia launch quite a few of its naval assets from Crimea into the Black Sea. There has been some activity there. However, we haven't seen any signs of them launching any kind of naval like landing operations or anything like that. Mostly, they launched those ships for conducting from sea to target missile strikes, etc. So, for the most part, the situation in the Black Sea has been kind of calm, I would say. I mean, there's still commercial traffic flowing freely in the Sea of Azov and the Black Sea for the most part. The one areas that you don't see too many naval vessels is, again, along this section of the Ukrainian southern coast. A lot of this area is mined, and again, under the watch of Russian naval forces. So you don't see too many commercial vessels frequenting that area. Let's go ahead. We'll switch over to my naval map. We do have a few naval vessels that are tracked. These are military naval vessels that are being tracked on this map here. I also have, if we scroll out here, get back over there to the Black Sea here. We have this other map here that shows quite a few. So some of these are commercial, some of these are military as well. So again, there still is quite a bit of activity occurring in the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov. In some news that was posted, this was last week, I believe. Actually, this came from the 9th of January. Ukrainian intelligence said that Russia's only aircraft carrier cruiser, Admiral Kutsinetsov, is in, quote, critical condition. It is unable to move on its own. Ship repair specialists warned that the condition of the cruiser does not allow to launch it because it is likely to roll over and sink. Divers found significant corrosion, and some holds are completely filled with water. So their only aircraft carrier is currently out of operation. Let's say that. Switching over to some aircraft radar news here. Let's go ahead and open up that. If I can find it. What happened to it here? Oh, here we go. All right. I got to switch over to my screen. Bear with me here, guys. All right, we'll go ahead and switch over to our air traffic radar here. You can see that commercial traffic over Ukraine is still pretty much non-existent. We do still see military aircraft in and around Ukrainian airspace and borders, mostly over Romania, Germany, Poland, etc., and over the Black Sea. Of course, we've been tracking our RQ-4 Global Hawk unmanned reconnaissance drones, namely Forte 10, has been frequenting the Black Sea area, keeping an eye on the Russian naval assets. Tonight, we only have one military aircraft in the sky. It's an Italian military AT-76 in the sky this evening. Nothing too much more to track other than that. I can go ahead and check our Flight Radar 24 here, and we'll take a look. So not too much in the way of most tracked flights this evening. Nothing over Europe that is of interest. Again, though, scrolling over here to the Black Sea in Ukraine, you can see all of that air traffic, keeping a distance, a good 9.5-foot pole here of distance between the Ukrainian southern coast, mainly Crimea, and where these these aircraft are again. Flying over the Black Sea. No commercial aircraft over Ukraine. It's still, again, to this day, I mean, for the past 330 days, has been basically a no-fly zone over Ukraine. So, switching over to our alert map here, we can talk about some of the alerts, the air raid alerts here that have occurred today. Let's go ahead and refresh that map. We currently have 3 active air raid alerts. Nikopol City and its territory community today at 7:47 p.m. Kryvyi Rih, Dnipro City, Dnipropetrovsk region, Nikopol, Kryvyi Rih, Dnipro as well. So quite a few areas in Ukraine have come under air raid alerts today. Again, this is our current active alert list for the 19th of January. Again, we currently have Nikopol City and its territory community. It's been under air raid alert for about 8 hours and 53 minutes. The Autonomous Republic of Crimea, based on the official air raid alert map, they've been under air raid alert for 39 days, 4 hours and 19 minutes. I believe, it's just kind of an extended readiness alert, so to speak. And then we have actually an outdated report down here from April 4th. For the Luhansk region, which is still active, 289 days, 9 hours and 55 minutes. If we go to our recent list here, we could see Zaporizhia City and its territorial community, Zaporizhia region. I believe these are all clear alarms, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that, though. So these lasted between 1:22 a.m. and 1:53 a.m. So again, duration of about 30 minutes or so for most of these. But this is the list here of all of the air raid alerts that have occurred to date. Do we have any Kievs? And we have Cherkasy region, Poltava, Nikopol. I'm not seeing too many Kiev, at least in this time span here. But again, quite a few have occurred today. So that about concludes our Ukraine updates for this evening. We're now going to switch over and cover a little bit of China news here on the ongoing situation in the South Pacific between China and Taiwan. First post this evening, Chinese military aircraft have entered Taiwan's airspace at least 7 times in the past week, says the Defense Ministry. Let's go ahead and read some information there. Again, this comes from, and it's funny now, last week I started using updates from the Ministry of Defense for Taiwan from their Twitter page, and I don't know what it is, but this week all of a sudden I've seen every major news outlet posting these updates from the Ministry of Defense for Taiwan. So that's good that people are actually going and getting this data directly from the source now. And using and like actually citing the sources for it, because I wasn't seeing that in the months leading up to kind of the escalation we've seen in China and Taiwan here over the past I would say 2 to 3 weeks. We've seen a dramatic increase in activity in the Taiwan Strait. It says here 4 Chinese military aircraft and several vessels were detected near Taiwan early Monday morning in the latest provocation of Beijing against the island nation of Taiwan. Taiwan's defense ministry said 4 People's Liberation Army and 3 People's Liberation Army naval vessels were detected around Taiwan around 6 a.m. Monday morning. You can see the post here cited from the Ministry of Defense Twitter page. says four PLA aircraft and 3 PLA vessels around Taiwan were detected at 6 a.m. UTC. This seems to be kind of a repeating pattern of kind of like the time. Around 6 a.m. UTC is when they do these incursions. For the most part, that's when we see them. We cannot see the map, he says. You don't have to be... Kayoka, I'm not sure what you meant by that. Please explain. Thank you. Taiwanese armed forces have monitored the situation and tasked CIP aircraft, Navy vessels, and land-based missile systems to respond to these activities, the Defense Ministry said. He says Brest has a huge training ground of Russian forces. They're training there at the moment. Lots of movement there. He said, "Oh God, lol, wrong chat. Sorry, no problem, Kayuka. Thank you so much for sending over that bit of information on Brest. I hope you guys were able to see the map. I think I showed you guys the map with Brest and stuff there. I hope we were able to. I hope you guys were able to see that. I'm pretty sure you were, but I know for a second when I first started I had forgot. Anyway, continuing on with Taiwan here. It says Taiwanese armed forces have monitored the situation and tasked CIP aircraft, Navy vessels, and land-based missile systems to respond to these activities. So they're keeping an eye on the situation. It added that 2 of the detected aircraft, described as J-16 jets, had entered Taiwan's air defense identification zone. Again, this is a repeating pattern that we've only seen further escalation over in the past few weeks. In further news, Taiwan is announced that it's to allow women into military reserve force training as China fears grow. So again, they're looking to expand the Taiwanese military. Taiwan's military on Tuesday rolled out plans to allow women to volunteer for reserve force training for the first time as China continues to ramp up military pressure on the democratic self-ruled island. The Taiwanese Defense Ministry said it will allow 220 discharged female soldiers to enroll in the training starting from the second quarter of this year. Major General Yu Wing Cheng from the ministry's all-out defense mobilization agency said the move would be on a trial basis for this year. Taiwan's defense ministry has previously said it only trained male reservists because it did not have sufficient capacity to accommodate both sexes. Taiwanese lawmakers had said that excluding women from reserve training amounted to gender discrimination. In December, Taiwan announced that it will extend the period of mandatory military conscription for all eligible men for 4 months to a year starting from 2024, and the requirement to apply to men born after 2005. So again, looking to expand their military ranks there. China more likely to invade Taiwan. An attack could come in 2027, says the island's foreign minister Joseph Wu. Again, who has warned here. Before we get into reading this article, I know like I've talked about this quite a few times. I'd like to reiterate that an attack on Taiwan is almost inevitable, okay? And that it will most likely come anytime from the time I'm giving this live stream to 2026, 2027. He's stating 2027. I and a lot of other military and intelligence analysts that I've heard from have said that they expect it to happen sooner rather than later, and for a multitude of reasons. Being that the longer they wait, the more prepared the Taiwanese military become. The longer they wait, the more military aid the U.S. can send to Taiwan. The longer that they wait, the less preoccupied the U.S. will be with the situation in Ukraine, which is a big thing. Okay, to think about. Okay, like the U.S. is so divided between the South Pacific and the Russian-Ukrainian situation right now. We're sending massive amounts of equipment. We're sending massive amounts of funding to Ukraine. So again, we're between a rock and a hard place, so to speak. So you have kind of a multitude of factors here brewing, and I know the Chinese know this. Okay, the Chinese realize that they might have a slight advantage if they act sooner rather than later and wait for Taiwan to become more prepared. Another reason they would like to do this is I believe they want to not only has China started to build their own chip fabs, so chip manufacturing facilities for CPUs and processors, etc. But they know that the U.S. has started to do the same. If they could get a jump on the U.S. And finish those fabs, before the U.S. can, right? And simultaneously, we talked about how China wants the fabs in Taiwan, but it's a possibility that China might not even care about the fabs in Taiwan. If they have their own fabs, okay, if they have their own chip manufacturing facilities, they, in theory, wouldn't need Taiwan. All right. And it's a possibility that over the next 10 years or so, we could see a transition in Asia where China starts to become the leader in some of these fields of manufacturing, for especially chips and processors, etc. So it could be that they want to get a jump on the U.S. They want to disable the U.S.'s ability, the world's economic ability, to rely on Taiwan for these chips, and increase the world's dependence on possibly in the future China for these chips, these processors. So again, there's like kind of a multitude of factors here, leading me to believe that it's possible that China would, it might try to act before. Sooner rather than later, before the U.S. can get Taiwan prepared to defend from said attack. So let's go ahead and read a little bit of this article. In fact, actually, we have a video. Let's go ahead and take a look at the video here, if it'll load. You're seeing here a video of Taiwanese military conducting drills. As China is now reportedly flying jets near Taiwan, as we mentioned earlier. So right there just reminded me of another reason. So I just listed, like 4 or 5 reasons that China would act sooner rather than later. Another one being, and again, they state right here, that Taiwan's Foreign Minister Zhou Wu thinks President Xi may invade to distract from domestic issues. So not only are they having economic issues in China, but they're having issues with COVID. They're having geopolitical issues as well. So that's another reason that kind of feeds into this. They could distract their entire populace with a war on Taiwan. Possible. Very possible. For those of you that didn't watch it, I highly recommend going and watching last week's report. I talk extensively about the Taiwan-China situation. I talk about just how it would be different from the Ukraine war and how things might unfold differently. I highly recommend you go and watch at least that section of last week's report. I'll read a little bit about this article here, and then we'll move on. Taiwan's foreign minister has said that he believes China is now, quote, more likely to invade Taiwan to distract from Leader Xi's domestic problems. Speaking exclusively to Sky News in his first sit-down interview of the year, Joseph Wu said 2027 is the key date such action will most likely happen. Again, most Intel analysts have stated it would have to happen before 2026. So it's interesting that he chose that date. I would say that 2027 would be, like, if they don't get it done by 2027, it's not going to happen, period. His words come at a time when tensions across the Taiwan Strait are the highest they've been for many years, with China now flying fighter jets towards Taiwanese airspace on a daily basis. That's the difference here, guys. A lot of people pop into live chat when I launched the Taiwanese OSINT, the Open Source Intelligence 24/7 streams. A lot of people hop into chat and they say, what's different here? There's no difference. They've been running these drills forever. And here's the difference: is the not only the heightened rhetoric, but the shift in the geopolitical situation, okay, with Ukraine, Russia, everything that's going on right now, but also the increase in the amount of these drills, the amount of incursions into Taiwanese airspace and naval space that we've seen over the past few weeks. It's dramatically increased. Again, they're now doing these things daily, sometimes on some days even hourly, okay? So that's where things are different now, and that's what points us to believe, they're really probing. The Chinese are really probing the Taiwanese defenses here. They're seeing just how close they can get. They're seeing how they're tracking how the Taiwanese respond to these incursions. And every time the Chinese do this, they get a little bit smarter and a little bit more capable. And again, I like to reiterate this. I talked about this in last week's stream, but Taiwan is a lot different. It's a lot smaller than Ukraine. It's a lot different than Ukraine, and it's in China's backyard. And there's not many local neighbors. You have, of course, Guam. You have Japan. You have some of those islands there off of Japan. And again, those are basically the only significant bodies that are near Taiwan where allies are stationed. And so, again, it's a largely different situation than what we see in Ukraine. So that about wraps up updates I have for you guys on China, Taiwan. I do expect to have a little bit more for you guys on that situation next week. We're going to hop into some brief cybersecurity news here. The CISA warns of flaws affecting industrial control systems from major manufacturers, both in the United States and abroad. The U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, also known as the CISA, has released several industrial control system advisories warning of critical security flaws affecting products from SOIO, in-hand networks, solder controls, and Simons. The most severe of the flaws relate to SIO's RTLS Studio, which could be exploited by an attacker to obtain unauthorized access to the server, alter information, create a denial of service condition, gain escalated privileges, and execute arbitrary code, according to the CISA. This includes CVE-2022, a case of hard-coded passwords for select users in the application's database that potentially grant remote adversaries unrestricted access. So kind of to put things into layman terms here for you guys, there are many companies that use this software for not only manufacturing but many other use cases. It's possible that this could be a security vulnerability that could be exploited from a remote attacker. Again, we'll kind of keep tabs on this situation. I know when we see things like this, they will most likely be patched in the very quickly in the coming days and weeks. However, the problem is in situations like this is that a lot of these factories, they'd have to 100% shut down production to make updates to some of these systems, and so that's where you have problems with some of this, some of these systems here, and keeping them secure is when you have to shut down entire manufacturing lines to be able to update some of these systems. Again, we'll keep an eye on that situation. In last week's report, I mentioned how the Royal Mail had been shut down due to a cyber attack. It's now been announced that Royal Mail has restarted limited overseas post after the cyber attack. This came 4 hours ago. It says here, Royal Mail has restarted the export of parcels from a backlog and will accept new letters for overseas as it tries to recover from that cyber attack. Parcels, quote, that have already been processed will start to be moved in limited volumes, the firm said, but no new parcels should be submitted for now. It said Royal Mail was the victim of a ransomware attack last week, and it still is working with security authorities to mitigate the impact. Again, ransomware is a malicious computer software that encrypts data and locks up systems. Criminals usually demand payment for releasing said data. Again, last week Royal Mail told customers they would not be able to send letters or parcels overseas until the matter was resolved. On Wednesday, Royal Mail said it was trying out, quote, operational workloads, but it asked customers not to send post yet that needs a custom declaration. So again, good news there that they are starting to recover from that cyber attack there, and hopefully will make a full recovery. All right, guys, so that about caps up all of the news I have for you this evening. We're now going to switch over into a Q&A. And while you guys are posting your questions, again, start going ahead in the live chat, post your questions, post your comments, and I'll get to reading all of those off. I'd love to be able to scroll all the way up to the top and start with every single question that's been asked. If you are still here and you asked a question earlier in the stream, please, by all means, repost it in the live chat, and I will read. I will read those questions and comments. Okay. While you guys are posting those comments, I had a live chat poll this evening that asks, "Do you think Russia will launch a renewed attack from Belarus with the Belarusian military forces?" I'm going to go ahead and end that poll now. I'll also post the results of that poll in the situation room if I can. I should be able to. Give me 1 second. I'm going to post that in the situation room for everybody to be able to look at. There we go. I posted that there. Again, it asked, "Do you think Russia will launch a renewed attack from Belarus with Belarusian military forces?" And 177 of you guys voted in that poll tonight. Thank you to all of you guys that voted in that poll. Do you think Russia will launch a renewed attack from Belarus with Belarusian military forces? An overwhelming 72% of you said yes. Only 27% of you said no. A few months back, if I would have done this poll, I think the majority would have said no. But it's very interesting now that more people are saying that it will happen. Personally, I do think we will see some kind of involvement here from Belarus before this war is over. Again, it could be a fake-out tactic, so to speak, from Russia as they try to draw forces away from the east. It's possible. Again, only time will tell, and we're going to keep a close eye on that situation as it develops. All right, so Miss Tiger Eye asks. Don't have anything on my channel. Actually, wait, no, hold up. Wrong question. Nemico Network. People want to know if there's a way to donate to the Sign My Rocket fundraiser without doing a super chat. Yes. So, again, to remind everybody, we are doing a fundraiser right now for it's signmyrocket.com. Okay. So basically, for $1,000, we can have a message from the channel here. So it'll be something like Nemico Network sends its regards to the Russian occupiers, or subscribe to Nemico Network, or whatever we decide to put on a 155 millimeter artillery shell. For $1,000, we can have that message put on there, and then they will record a video of that. And then I'm going to use that as part of our video intros or our stream intros for the future weekly reports. So I'm pretty excited about that. At the beginning of the stream, we were about $100 in out of that 1,000. I know we had quite a few people donate during this stream. If you guys would like to donate, you can either give a super chat on the YouTube channel, which is probably the easiest way, or there's a link where you can support the channel directly in the description below this stream through PayPal. If you send a donation through PayPal and then message me on Discord or send me an email to let me know your name and that you want that donation to go directly to the Sign My Rocket fundraiser, I'll make sure that those are put towards that fundraiser there. I expect it'll probably take us a few streams for us to get to that $1,000 mark. I'm really excited though. Once we get that video back, and I'll be able to show it off to you guys. My plan is to upload it to the channel, and as well we'll use it as part of our stream intro for the weekly intel reports going forward. I believe we're probably at maybe $200, $300 here, if I'm not mistaken, so far this stream. Joe Blow and Win, thank you so much for. He just tossed another 51 towards that fundraiser. Thank you so much. It means a lot, Joe. And again, guys, to remind you, all these donations. Not only do we get that awesome video of that of that Ukrainian 155 millimeter artillery shell being sent to the Russian invaders, but the money in the end, once they reach their goal of $2 million, gets donated to help. It's spent on equipment for Ukrainian soldiers directly. So we're talking things like gloves, plate carriers, helmets. It could be used for ammo. It could be used for weapons. It could be used for food, for rations, like MREs and things like that. Everything that the Ukrainian forces need on the ground to get the job done. Okay, so this is the first time we're doing a fundraiser with Sign My Rocket. I'm starting out with the smallest one, really the one that I wanted, which was the 155 millimeter artillery round. Maybe in the future we will get maybe we'll do the M77 howitzer one, which is 5,000, and maybe even you can get text like written right on one of the artillery systems. I'll scroll down here. I'll show you guys. So this is what it would look like. Basically, here they write a message on the side of the shell. They then take a video of it. Oh, that's just for text on the shell. You don't get a video of it, but I was talking about the video here. So this is what it would look like here for the video. Basically, so this video actually doesn't show the first part of it. So the first part of it, you see a video of the message on the shell, and then they actually they put it into the artillery. Oh, here we go. You can see it here. Yeah, there we go. So there's the message. Right there, okay? So say, whatever message we want to have on there, it'll probably be something like, Nemico Network sends its regards, or subscribe to Nemico Network, or whatever we decide to put on there. And then, they take it, they load it into the artillery piece, and they send it downrange to the Russians, and we will get that video then and use it in our videos. So again, not only do we get that, but that money then ends up going to a good cause. So, and they have a lot of other ones too. Like you can get a text on an M77 howitzer, like this, and they put the text right on there. So we could put Nemico Network sends its regards, or subscribe to Nemico Network right there, or whatever we want to write. I want it to be something related to the channel, of course, and we could have that written right on the piece of artillery. We could put text and a sticker on a Peon Super Bonker 9000, as they refer to it here. Sorry to all my headphone wearers there for that wind noise. But again, it's a really cool fundraiser. I really like what these guys are doing. And again, it's for a good cause. Back to our questions here, because I'm getting distracted. Let's scroll back up here, because I skipped over a bunch of people's questions. Rakusan 2013 said, everybody get your bug out bags ready. I would recommend everybody is prepared at all times, especially in the day and age that we live in. Sydney Pruden, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. She says, I voted yes in the poll. Wise decision. Tony Wilson asks, could the system malfunctions from the FAA and the Royal Mail Service be example of cyber breaches? So the FAA was a database error, or at least that's what they stated it was. I still don't know for sure. I mean, I've heard many different theories on what happened with the FAA attack. That it was a corrupted database file. It's. I would say, yeah, it's a possibility that database file could have been corrupted via a cyber attack. However, it wasn't publicized that way. The Royal Mail was a 100% a cyber attack, cyber breach. Yes. So to answer your question, yes. And I think we're going to start to see more of those. As time goes on, we've seen like an uptick over the past 10 years or so of cyber attacks, of not just cyber attacks like intrusions, but we've seen denial of service. We've seen a lot of ransomware as well over the past 5 years. For me personally, I work in tech, and I see ransomware constantly, especially over the past year or so. It's been a plague on the industry. So I anticipate that we're going to see more of that in the coming months and years. Appy Moo asks, would you hang around with a friend who has the name Dick Wang? Just trying to keep the convo going. Sounds like a pretty cool guy. I've seen a lot of conversation referred to Mr. Wang in the live chat here this evening. Uktin with a good question here. Do you think the intent of the Russians are still focused on broadening the strategy to neighboring states? So it's possible. I mean, if you mean like expanding their influence, I would say so. Right now, their primary focus is Ukraine, of course, and basically securing their borders along the Baltic nations. That's their main focus and priority, I think, right now. China, on the other hand, has been significantly trying to increase outreach and influence on on different countries, in Africa, in the Middle East, etc. Russia hasn't been doing too much of that recently. Again, their focus has primarily been on the special military operation and sustaining that. Tony Wilson says, is Putin's ever-expanding mobilization meant to compensate for dwindling munitions stockpiles? Well, if they can throw more bodies at a problem, to them it's almost just as good as throwing more artillery at the issue. But yes, the more bodies they have to throw at the conflict, the more progress they will make. I would say that is about guaranteed. And I think we'll see more mobilization going forward. I know now there's rumors of a new wave. I've seen some Russian YouTubers even state that it's already started, and I've even seen calls for mobilization in Belarus. So again, I think we're going to see more of that going forward here, especially in the next month or two. If they're going to mobilize, they need to do it now. If they're going to mobilize for the spring and summer offensives, they need to do it now. So, I think that's something we could probably see definitely within the next few weeks here. Next few weeks to months here. What was that here? Patty Whack with a great question. By the way, Patty Whack, I got your email about being a mod, and I will be talking to you after the stream, or if not today, tomorrow. But I will be messaging Miss Tiger Eye and Kayuka, just giving you guys a rundown. Sorry, of the live chat moderation stuff. Pretty straightforward though. But yeah, I'll probably be adding Patty to that arsenal as well. He asks a good question though. He says, at Nemico, will the people that donate, will we all decide on the message and vote on it? So my plan is, I'll probably write 3 different messages. Like it'll either be like subscribe to Nemico Network, or Nemico Network sends its regards to the Russian invaders, or something else. I'll have 3. If any of you have any good ideas, PM me of what a message would be. I want it to be related to the channel, so have Nemico Network in it. And then we'll vote. We'll vote between the 3 of those, and whichever ones you guys vote on, we will we'll do. And then of course, if we want to do something different for the next one, if we do decide to do another one, we can maybe. We could, do something a little different, like as Rakasan says, the Canon McCannon face. We could do something like that, or who knows? We'll figure it out. But for the first one, I'd like to do something, from the channel, and then we can go from there in the future. Maybe do another one. It's a really great charity, and I'd love to do more stuff with them if we can successfully do this one. Kayuka says, did you all get your Avastal bracelets? I like that fundraiser. I saw those bracelets. That was pretty cool that they did that. I think something should be done similar for the forces that fought in not just Kyiv, but in like places like Bakhmut and Soledar and stuff. I think we should see more of those. I really like that sort of stuff. Joe Blowin says the video from Semi Rocket will be epic. It will indeed. I can't wait to check that out and to be able to show you guys that on the channel. OG Smiley 69, thank you so much for tuning in on Twitch. Says thank you for another awesome report. Thank you so much, OG Smiley. For those of you that don't know, I do upload these reports to the YouTube channel after they are done being live. in their raw, unedited format. I'm also looking into getting a few editors as well that are going to help edit them down into condensed versions. We're going to be doing some shorts, and then we'll also have kind of like a condensed, maybe 5 to 10 minute version of like some of the important parts of these weekly reports. I hope to start uploading those in the next few days, as well as I have some other video content separately that I'm working on right now as well. Speedy Squirrel, thank you so much for tuning in. Says, so great to have these updates back. Thanks, Nemico Network. Thank you so much for Speedy Squirrel for tuning in. You're here every day. You're in the 24/7 Intel streams as well, constantly. If you guys have any ideas on how I can improve those 24/7 Intel streams, please send me your messages on Discord or email, however you want to get those over to me. I'm always willing to make improvements to those. I do plan, I haven't got around to it, I've been a little busy this week, but I was hoping to get some changes and some updates done to those Intel streams. I know a lot of people requested cameras on the Ukraine stream. I will be getting cameras back up on those Ukrainian streams. I just haven't got around to it. I've been focusing mainly on the open source intelligence tools and the data that those can show us. But I'll be taking one of the layout boxes, one or two of those, and we'll be replacing them with cameras here. In fact, I can just show you here. If we go back over here, you can see. So like one of these squares or a few of these squares here on the left side of your screen will be used for cameras, or maybe one of the large portions as well. Maybe we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Preston Ringrose with the super emoji. Thank you so much for that. Glad to have you tuning in. See here, scrolling down. Tony Wilson, great question. Will America ever deliver Abrams? It's possible. Again, I don't like to say if anything is definite, but I wouldn't put it past as a probability. Or sorry, I wouldn't say it's a probability, but it's a possibility. That's a better way to put it. Abrams are kind of a big deal for the U.S. Main battle tanks. It depends on where the situation goes. If Germany, holds it to the U.S. as an ultimatum, it could be a possibility. We'll have to wait and see. Excuse me. Sydney Prudence says, I feel like the rocket should have Lords of Acid's Discord name somewhere on it for donating the most money. Most likely, yeah. Or maybe we can get a... maybe we'll do eventually in the future. Maybe we'll do a dedicated one. Lords of Acid sends his regards. But yeah, a big shout out to Joe Blown Wind, aka Lords of Acid, on the Discord server for all the support for the fundraiser this evening. It's highly appreciated, and it's got us one step closer to getting that video of that piece of artillery striking its target in Russian-held territory. Miss Tiger Eye says, I really don't think we will send Abrams. Yeah, that seems to be the common assumption here, is that the U.S. isn't going to be willing to do that. Again, I don't put it off as a possibility, but I wouldn't say it's a probability. One should send one for Mehmet. I don't know if that's right, but the guy in Kyiv, yes, that's his name, Mehmet. That'd be cool. Maybe even do one from Mehmet eventually. That'd be pretty sweet. As Tony Wilson says to Miss Tiger Eye, yeah, that's probably the best guess to make a present. Yeah, I would say it's unlikely, but possible. Not completely out of the question, I would say. Speedy Squirrel, thank you so much for the super chat there. The super squirrels he posted with his super chat there. Thank you so much for that. Kitty Grundy, or actually, sorry, never mind. Sydney Prudence says, not bad for the first time of getting donations. Well, actually, I did get one from Lords of Acid in last week's stream for the Sign My Rocket fundraiser. So we were already $100 into it. So, but we did make some pretty good progress tonight. I'm hoping it'll only take us maybe a stream or two to reach our cap for that, and we'll be able to just get that sent out to the signmyrocket.com fundraiser, and then maybe we could start another one and do another one maybe for that howitzer. I would really like to do that. That'd be pretty cool. Maybe we'll do a vote on which one we should do next, because I think you guys should have a say in it. Tony Wilson with another good question. He's just one after another tonight. He says, how will drone warfare differ in Taiwan as compared to Ukraine? Well, seeing as DJI is a Chinese company, I could expect that China will have a more direct control over at least DJI manufactured drones. In the event of a Taiwan invasion, they might even be able to disable drones on Taiwan, like on Taiwanese in Taiwanese airspace, I should say. However, it's hard to tell. I would expect though overall, since there's many different manufacturers of that drone hardware, I would say that it's possible that we're going to see kind of the same thing we see in Ukraine, that they're used in pretty much the same in the same way as both spotting, for reconnaissance and for spotting for like artillery, etc. Sydney Prudence says, thank you, Nemico. We are so happy to have you back. Thank you so much, Sydney, for tuning in this evening. We all love you over on the Discord server. There's a few of you in here that are pretty active on the Discord server, and I thank you guys highly for sticking around and keeping up the chat and being a part of our community. Crypto Santa Claus is Nemico Network, as always. Love from Denmark. I'm trying to just get through all of these here. Kitty Grundy says, how much do you think these Patriots will help? They will help in some regard, especially in areas like Kyiv, around the capital. Definitely kind of a big deal having those Patriot missile systems, but they're not getting very many of them. It's kind of hard to tell now until they're put to use. But I definitely think they will come in handy. Any piece of equipment the Ukrainians can get their hands on now is helpful. Tony Wilson says, I do wonder about Taiwanese versus Chinese cyber capabilities. Both very advanced countries. That is true. We could see more activity in the cyber space, so to speak, when it comes to a Chinese invasion of Taiwan. We could see China launch cyber attacks more so than the Russians did on Ukraine. They did attack Ukrainian cyber infrastructure, but not very effectively. We could see a difference there if in the event of a Chinese invasion of Taiwan. As Kayuka says, and I think this is pretty accurate, he says, I think the Western allies will most likely wait to see how the APCs and IFVs, infantry fighting vehicles, and such will perform in Ukraine before they decide to send over anything like main battle tanks. I think that's a pretty accurate assessment there. Considering Taiwan is 170 kilometers from mainland China, small drones won't work. I think what he meant was basically, drones being used on the ground in Taiwan, in the same way that they are in Ukraine. Count says we also have 3 Patriots coming. That is going to be big. Yeah, 3 Patriots, but we'd like to see more than that. Because again, it's like 1 Patriot missile system per city. That in reality, well, I wouldn't say city, in each region. To fully cover all of Ukraine effectively, they need more than just 3, and I believe that they should get more and that they need more of those Patriot missile systems. So we'll see. Again, I do think they will definitely come in very handy, especially around Kyiv and the capital, and defending against further bombardment from the Russian forces. Speedy Squirrel, heard you're in the hospital tonight and tuning in from a hospital bed. I hope you get better, and we all send our best wishes to you, and hope that you make a quick and speedy recovery. No pun intended. Miss Tiger Eyes says, to speak upon your breast discussion earlier, there's a training ground there with Russian and Belarusian personnel and military. Yes, so there is a training ground, not just there, there's a few actually spread across the southern border. What's interesting, though, is the amount of equipment they're sending there. For training, they don't need that much. They're sending entire rail lines full of this Russian equipment that is marked for use in Ukraine. Again, you could see with those axis of attack identification markers that we saw on the side of those vehicles earlier. So again, that's kind of alarming that we're seeing just the amounts of equipment being moved around within Belarus. But yeah, that is to be noted that they do have training, joint Russian and Belarusian training facilities in that area. All right, so that'll about cap off our Q&A for this evening. If I didn't answer anybody's question, you'd like to send it over to me via PM or email. I can always respond to those. It might take me some time, though, because I get quite a few every day, so again, bear with me on that. First off, I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. To all my usuals that tuned in tonight, thank you so much. To everybody on Twitch that followed, to everybody on Twitch that tuned in tonight, thank you guys so much. To everybody that helped out with the fundraiser tonight, to everybody that supported us with super chats and super emojis and all that stuff. Thank you guys a lot. It means a ton. It's the reason we're able to do this. And with the fundraiser, you guys are helping a good cause, and we're gonna get something cool out of it at the same time. So I'm pretty pumped for that. Where was I going next with this? Oh, yes, like and subscribe if you haven't already. Again, it's the best way to support the channel. It's the best way to support this reporting. And it's the only way to get access to our live chat on YouTube is to be subscribed for about 20 minutes before you can get access to the chat. We dual stream to both Twitch and YouTube. So for those of you that are watching on YouTube, you can always go check us out over on Twitch, and vice versa. If you're on Twitch, you can always try and check us out over on YouTube. Let me see, where else was I going with this? I got new videos coming in the near future here. I have a few that are in the works right now. I had a little bit of let's say I got busy this week, and I had some stuff come up that I wasn't able to get. There was a video I wanted to get out this week to you guys. There's actually two of them that I want to get out this week to you guys, and I wasn't able to get those out yet, but they're almost done, and I'll be uploading those probably the next few days here if I can get to it. So I'm looking forward to bringing you guys some of that video content here coming in the future. That's what I'm spending most of my time on now going forward. Of course, we do these weekly intel reports each week, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Wednesday, okay? And after they're live, they're uploaded to the YouTube channel in their full unedited format. And then, of course, in the days leading after, we'll upload snippets and stuff and kind of condensed versions of those from those weekly intel reports. If you haven't already, the best way to join our community, become part of what we're doing, is to join our Discord server. There's a link to that in the description below. You can post in our Situation Room over there, which is basically a channel of community aggregated reporting and news. From there, I handpick topics that people post in there, and I include them in these weekly reports during our community aggregated reporting segment. So if you'd like to be on the show, you can go over there and contribute to those Situation Room reports. Of course, just remind everybody, we are running this fundraiser for SciMyRocket.com. Thank you to everybody that helped out with that this evening. We'll be continuing that next week, and I'll probably put up a community post about it too, either today or tomorrow, talking about that a little bit more in depth. So thank you to everybody. Thank you to everybody that voted in the live chat poll this evening. I really appreciate your guys' feedback. Also, thank you guys for voting in the community chat poll, which we had on the YouTube channel last week, I believe it was, or the week before last. I was asking about what kind of content you guys wanted to see more of out of the future. We had I think over 500 people vote in that, so that's awesome. Thank you guys so much for that. Again, I'll be taking that feedback. I always take your guys' feedback, and I put it to good use, so it doesn't go on unnoticed. Again, we'll be back here next week, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm trying to think if Wednesday, Eastern Standard Time. I'm trying to think if I forgot anything. I'm pretty sure that's about it. Epimoo says, I'm Desai, thanks for the rundown on Ukraine and East Asia, and thank you all at Nemico Network. Of course, we're not just doing, I just kind of want to reiterate quick, we're not just doing Ukraine and China. Basically, any global security threats, any situations that unfold across the globe, we will be covering here in these weekly intel reports. If you guys have any suggestions on how we can make these intel reports better or things to cover, please send me a message. Please make yourself heard, and I will do my best to cater to that. I think that is about it, guys. Hit that like button, hit subscribe. After this is done, I will be putting up the Ukraine 24/7 Intel stream and the Taiwan 24/7 Intel stream. It might take me about an hour or so to get those back up or less. Make sure you tune in to those. That's where everybody continues to chat, not just there, but over on the Discord. I guess can't take away attention from the beautiful Discord community which we have built over there. But again, to everybody tuned in tonight, thank you so much for stopping by. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, you have been watching Nemico Network.
Something that will change our daily lives.